Hello everybody, welcome back to This and That Food and More. Raviolis. Love raviolis and I love making them. But they can be a pain if you're not sure what to do. I'll tell you what I do. I usually start off with about 300 grams of flour, all-purpose flour, and 3 eggs. Usually 1 egg per 100 grams of flour. Now sometimes it's a little dry, a little flaky, so you might add in like a teaspoon of water at a time until you get that consistency. Now, one of the easiest ways is to get one of these. It's a pasta maker. Sometimes you can find them at Goodwill or Bargain Hunt or Salvation Army. Inexpensive, but sometimes they go up to as high as $30 or better online. What I do is I put a little oil on the outside of it and on the inside of it. I make these with egg pasta because with raviolis, especially in this, I've made it with semolina and water before, and it cuts through and they bust a lot of times. So what I do is, as you see, I've already made a bunch of my dough. Got it laid out here. And you try to make sure you got everything to the edge as best as possible. I would make it about 14 inches long. And this is about 4.5 inches, but I try to make 5 to 6 inches on the side, depending on the width of your pasta maker. Now, I usually use my electric one to sheet it, because with my limited mobility with my hand after the stroke, it makes it a whole lot easier. You can do it on a manual one, but with my arm being the way it is, it gets to be too much for my arm. But I still enjoy it. Then it comes with this. It's like your little pocket maker. What you do is you just put it on top of there. You put it on there, press it in there really good. And you lift out, and then you got little pockets in there. Now, depending on your filling, you want to make sure there's not a lot of moisture in there. Sometimes when you're doing a spinach or spinach ricotta, you got to make sure you drain all that stuff really, really good. You don't want it technically dry, but you want it to be as dry as you can, because too much moisture in there can offset the ravioli. Today I'm making a shrimp and crab ravioli. Now this is what they call a melon baller or a baller. I usually use a small one because if I pack it too much, they bust. So you just put enough in there. You want to have a good little bite to it. You don't want all dough, but you don't want it all packed so tight in there that they can't get the flavor of the shrimp and crab or whatever filling you have. Sometimes you can put a little oil on there, or if you want to use your Pam and spray on it, you can do that on the tray and on your melon ball. It makes it come out a little bit easier. Sometimes it don't want to come out at all. You kind of dig through it. My hands are clean. I wash them a ton. Now, I use fresh shrimp. I usually cook that in my little crab meat. It's real crab. And a little butter, salt, and just a touch of garlic, just to give it a little extra flavoring. But you really want that seafood taste to come out. Now, some may look like these have got a little bit more in it than others, and that's okay. It won't hurt anything, being egg pasta. The structure of the egg pasta really holds in pretty good. You just have to be careful when you sheet it. Now, I make it thin for a lot of my raviolis, so there's not too much of a chew. You don't want it like you're chewing leather on your shoe. So I do it to about 7. Some people may do it to about 8, but I do it to about 7. Now, if you're doing noodles, whether you're making spaghetti noodles or ramen or fettuccine or angel hair linguine or something like that, excuse me, you can do it to 7 also, maybe even 8, because you want them to be a little thinner, but not too thin. Now, if you're making lasagna noodles, you want it to about a 5, because they'll soften up as they cook in the oven too. And I usually pre-boil my pasta too before I even put it in the oven for my lasagna. That seems to make a little bit of a difference too. All right. Now I usually serve this. I've got to make another sauce because I ran out of sauce the other day. I usually serve the seafood and the shrimp and crab with a little Parmesan Reggiano cream sauce. It's about the only time I use cream, and I know a lot of people like fettuccine Alfredo, but most Italians, they usually don't use cream for that. But with this, what I also do is I spritz just a little bit of water so that it hangs in there good. Now, one thing that's going to be kind of your enemy here is air trapped in here. So as I lay another piece of dough across, I'm trying to make sure I get it all, on the edges, but I also pat it down a little bit, so I'm trying to get some of that air out as I go across. Now, I haven't found a way to get it out 100% doing it with this method here, but you do get some of it out, and then when we'll show you when you cut it that it comes out, that it works a lot better, and then you can push some of the air out. So I'm going to cut some of these ends off because I really don't need them at the moment. Now some people will save this extra dough and like cut it into strips and make little homemade noodles out of it to put in for soups. Sometimes I do that, sometimes I don't. I've already got a big bag of noodles in the freezer where I've made them, so I don't want to do anything right now. Next thing you want to do is use your roller. Now, I put this Rubbermaid shelving paper underneath it because on my pasta board, it would slip and slide, and it just made it more trouble than it's worth. So when I put that on there, it doesn't move as much. So what you want to do is you want to start kind of in the middle and work your way forward and work your way back. Now, when you first do it, you want to do it kind of easy, just to kind of get some of that air out and kind of get an idea of where you're at. And as you see, as you roll it a little harder, you can see that the metal pieces come through on the inside. That makes it look like the little ridges or the little fanning on your cutter. But you do that as much as you can to try to get that done. And I try to get to the end. And what I do is I'll change it around so I can get to the very end of it so that it peels off really good. So after that, you should be able to take it. And I will say, sometimes if you do feel like you have a little bit of extra moisture in your dough as you're sheeting it, it's okay to put a little flour on there. You don't want it real dry and crumbly. Also, when you're sheeting it, sometimes you can get, not as much in this one, but some of them have like what I call little rooster tails, because sometimes you're kind of pulling it out and it stretches it a little bit. When you get to about level 4 or 5 on here, you want to kind of guide it and put your knuckles up under it like that. And when you sheet it through again, you'll kind of guide it in that way too, so you don't pull as much. You want this to kind of stretch it, but make it on a continuous basis. All right, then you take it out, and what you do is you just kind of flip it over and just lightly push through. As you can see, some of the raviolis will just fall out, or should fall out pretty easily. And like I said, when I use egg pasta, I don't have as much splitting on me. Now, some of them will still stay together to some degree. And they make what I call a medium ravioli, which I think is good for kids and adults. They're not the super big ones you see at a lot of places. A lot of restaurants will give you just a little bit of dough, a little bit of filling, and then the rest of it's a lot of dough. So I guess it gives you the idea you're getting a lot because you're paying quite a bit too. So what I'll do is I'll use my little cutter and what I call my fan blade, I can't remember what the name of it is, and just go through there and cut it off the end so they're separated without messing up the original one. that came off the little cart. Now, one thing I do is I'll go to the sides. Hopefully you can see that. I'll go on the side and just lightly push down to make sure it's sticking, and hopefully pushing some air out too. But I don't want any of the filling to come out. So when I'm pretty satisfied with that, then I'll stick it on a plate like this. Go through again, press it on the side, go around it. Now you may have to, double up again if you got maybe a little too much filling in there. But usually with that water and letting it sit, and when I get through making like a plate full of them, usually makes about 24. I'll put it in the freezer for about an hour, let them freeze up, and then I'll bag them. I usually bag them in amounts of 10, because if somebody wants just a small order of 10 or a medium order of 20 and a large order of 30 plus, it's easier to count instead of me having to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. I've already got a number as 10. I found this is one of the best methods that's worked for me. Now, somebody may have some other ideas if they've made these before. And it does give it a little edge on it too, so that it gives it a little room so that it won't pop out when you're boiling the raviolis. Like I said, sometimes if you get a little too much in there, you may have to go around it a couple more times just to make sure. But usually these raviolis give you a good little bite to it. And I've not had any complaints from anybody. Every once in a while you might get one that busts when you boil it. I had one when I was loading up a tray for them. One of them kind of came apart, and I think it was the spoon I was using when I was taking it out of the sauce. Because sometimes after I boil it and I'm heating up sauce, I'll stick it in the sauce to make sure some of it really sticks to it before it goes in the main platter. Now, sometimes the oil gets on your board. It might make it a little hard to pick up. You can kind of see how it does. There's a good little bite of the shrimp and crab in there. Now, I know some people probably use some imitation crab, and that's a choice that each person has to make for themselves. But I don't. I like the flavor of crab and shrimp, and those that enjoy the seafood seem to have appreciated that I use real stuff and not imitation crab. I've not found imitation shrimp yet, so I'm not diving into that one. Yeah, you just want to push on the sides. And like I said, it gives it kind of a little barrier, a little buffer. It doesn't mean that it'll never pop out, but you stand a better chance. Most of them don't. And sometimes I might throw an extra 1 or 2 in there, just if I think 1 or 2 might bust. I'll throw an extra 1 or 2 in there just so I know I can still, get the order right for the person ordering. Sometimes I'll push it with my thumb if I'm at kind of a bad angle, but I'm trying to get most of it where y'all can see it, how I'm doing it. You notice I probably have a chef jacket on. Well, I do have my chef jacket on. I'm not a professional chef, but I got tired of messing up all my shirts with red sauce and flour dust. So I said, well, I'll just get one of these. I know these will hold up real well, and that's what they're made for. All right. Now, if you don't want to use the tray, you can always make the dough and put as much as you want in there. And there are 2 different kind of stamps that I have. I have a round one and I have a big square one. Now, these make really good raviolis. And like I said, you still have to go around and sometimes do a half moon with your hand to kind of get all the air out. But also knows I use a lot more product when I do that. So if I'm still selling it at the same price, I'm kind of losing money on that deal. But I want everybody to be happy with what they got. So I'll set these just to the side for a minute. And then I'm going to get another tray over here again. Now I keep a little thing with oil. Now like you said, you're welcome to take it over to the sink and like spray it a little bit to get it kind of oily. I just have a little napkin. I keep a little vegetable oil or olive oil, whatever I've got at the time. And I just kind of move that so you can see it. Go on the outside, inside, and around the little round parts too. That way it makes them easier to slip out. Now it does make them a little oily on the outside, but once you freeze them, that oil doesn't even play a part anymore. So I just lift my, I've got about, well, I use 2, so I've got 6 more sheets of this dough because I'm also going to make a spinach and ricotta. Now, still a little bit moist, but I've got enough here to make sure that that I'm covering all the edges. And I get the little pocket, what I call a pocket maker. And I put it in there. Let it sit a second. So I've got all my little pockets. If you still see a little bit of white flour or something in there, it won't hurt anything. It'll cook out when you boil it up. So we're going to make another one of this seafood, or shrimp and crab. As you notice, I don't edit my videos because, you know, people at home, you know, they don't have a chance to, you know, see it where, okay, well, somebody makes a mistake, they just, you know, edit it so it looks like everything's going to always turn out perfect. It doesn't, trust me. I've busted so many before until I found out different techniques just from trial and error, or I'll ask some friends of mine that make pasta, you know, what has helped them. I also have watched videos too. I mean, there's plenty of videos on the internet, on especially YouTube, and I've enjoyed a lot of them. Some of them, you know, I say, well, I don't know that would work here. Because when you make your dough, some of it's going to depend on humidity in the house, the type of flour you use. You can use 00 flour. You can use semolina. Sometimes I'll use semolina with, if I'm making a color pasta, I'll use like beet juice if I want some red noodles or pinkish noodles. But if I don't add as much of the beet juice in there. You can use spinach or parsley in there. You can use just herbs if you want to. Usually I'll do that when I'm making noodles. I said I'm trying to get where it's not too full because I don't want it to bust when they're boiling. Now some may have a little extra in it, and that's okay. I guess I'm a little extra too sometimes. You probably noticed I got a haircut over the weekend. This Sunday, February 15th, was my birthday. And I had a real good time. I went out to the goat farm. I did that 5 years ago. And the same people own it, and they're very kind people. If you get a chance to look up Walker Pony Ranch on the internet, they may have a YouTube channel. I don't know. I know they have a Facebook channel. But they're very kind, and they've expanded their animals, so that was really cool to see. And very sweet people. Her husband wasn't there this time. He was kind of making up for the snow and ice weather that we had for 2 weeks. So he was trying to make up some on his work. But if you get a chance, I mean, they really had some nice things out there. I really enjoyed it. Took a lot of pictures and some videos too. So right now, I'm going to put my other layer of dough on top. Like I said, I'm going to try to hold it up a little bit so I can try to get as much air out as possible. Like I said, you're probably not going to get all of it out, and that's okay. You can kind of fix it when you pop out the thing for the raviolis. Now we have where we roll it out. I like starting in the middle. That way it gives me a chance to get out any air. Now, once you kind of go over it lightly 1 or 2 times, which I try to do, then you can kind of bear down a little bit, and then that way the metal portion will start coming through the dough, because you want it to be a clean break when you do it. Now the middle ones will start coming through some too. Right, now you want to get the ends where it breaks off the ends too. All right. Let's cut some of this and see where we're at. I usually do that before I start rolling, but I didn't think I was too busy yakking. All right, there we go. See, I still got a bunch of dough left, so if I wanted to redo that, I could. And run it through the, oh, I can't even call the name, sheeter, my electric pasta maker, and resheet this and do it again. It's still got some vibrancy to it and it's not overly dried. All right, now just take it and flip it. And then just lightly push. They will start to fall. Some of them will all come together at the same time. Some of them take a little extra. But I found this to be one of the easier ones. Now, you can always make it, like I said, with the stamps. I don't know if they have smaller ones. I haven't seen them, but I also know they have a heart one if you want to do it that way. Like I said, you use a little bit more product in the middle. And if you're just making it for family, I mean, that's okay. If you're doing it, because you're making it for somebody and you're going to sell it or anything, a lot of people won't do this because they say, man, it's too time consuming. I don't have that much time. But it is a labor of love, but I always enjoyed it because I always thought it was good therapy for my hands and mental therapy too. So I'm going to grab my other plate. Got the other ones on there. See if I can move this out of the way and see if you can still see it. See, I'm pushing on the sides. Try to give it that little barrier, make sure it's sticking up real good and pushing some air out. Now you're going to have probably still a little bit, but because you're doing it like this, and you're pushing on the sides, you don't have as much to worry about. Now, like I said, some of them are going to have a little bit more product in them than others. Part of it not paying attention, but sometimes it just works out that way. Just pushing it on the side, and you still see a little bit of air in there, but because we sprayed water on them to help it kind of be where it adheses real good to it, it shouldn't be a problem. And then once you freeze it, like I said, generally I don't have a problem with it anymore. I used to just take it and cook it, from scratch. Right when I made it, go ahead and boil it up. But I found that if I froze it before I did that, they stayed together a lot better. Now, of course, you can always buy your raviolis at the store. They've got all kind of different flavors. And that's just a personal choice. But for those that really want to make something special for their families, and if anybody has made some before and they've got some other tips and tricks, I'm all ears. I'm not so thin-skinned I can't take criticism. I tell people, I said, hurt my feelings, but don't tell me it's not your mom or your grandmother's recipe because I don't know them and I don't have the recipe. So we do it on the sides. And we're just putting it where we have space. And when they freeze, they don't always freeze together where they're stuck together. Every once in a while you'll get one or two that does it. See, that turned out pretty good. It's got a lot of product in it, but I've got that little barrier there, so it turned out pretty good. And I always say the sauce and the cheese, I use Parmigiano Reggiano, Yeah, it's expensive, and I just happened to go by Sam's to get some, and I got the last block, and I was really running low on cheese, so I said, let me go ahead and grab it while I'm here. Costco does sell it. They're around $22 a block now, and that's usually about a pound and a quarter. And I grade mine, so that way it makes more cheese, but it also melts better in the sauce. Now, when I make Italian sausage and Parmesan Reggiano, I'll cook the sausage, put it in there, and I'll put a little bit of the cheese inside there, but it's also in the sauce too. So everybody, the sauce really makes a difference. I usually make like a bolognese sauce, but I don't use milk, and I never put sugar in my sauce. Some people might. I use San Marzano tomatoes. They're very low acid tomatoes, and I don't have anybody complain about heartburn or indigestion from it. And believe me, I would be one of the first ones, because as much as I love Roma tomatoes, I know I had to eat them during the day early, because by nighttime I'll be hurting real bad if I tried to eat it like with a salad or something. All right, there's 24 of them, the shrimp and crab. I'm going to put that in the freezer for about an hour, and then I'll divvy it up in the different bags, and then I'll start on my spinach and ricotta. Hey, y'all have a great day, and thanks for tuning in. Y'all take care.